everybody doing in TV land? We are going to do a special kind of video today. We have been cruising for a little bit over 2 years, so today we'd like to do sort of a 2-year checkup. We want to tell you everything we've spent since we left the docks and how much it costs.
Ever wish you could escape normal life and experience more of the world?
So meet me on that island.
Well, we did just that. We sold everything we owned on dry land and sailed away.
Promise me that we'll sail away.
Now we are roaming the planet in search of new adventures and sharing it with you every week.
Just promise me that we'll sail away.
So hit subscribe and escape normal with us.
And I'll be yours forevermore.
Come on, it's just that little button down there. That's it.
So a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is going to take place in St. Martin and Antigua, because when we got there, kind of right around our 2-year date of cruising, suddenly all this stuff was available to us. Stores where we could buy parts and Amazon that we could have brought in suddenly, where none of that was available before. Suddenly we were spending a ton of money. That gave us the idea of, well, this is obviously the 2-year checkup and all the things that we need to do to the boat. We're also going to include the things we did during the year that were obvious necessities that we had to take care of.
So the things we're going to talk about, they are on our boat, but that doesn't mean that they won't be on your boat. They're not specific to a certain type of boat, and we're not going to include any of our recreational stuff or clothes or things that everybody buys even on land, just because that's a very subjective thing. We did spend a lot of money on more recreational. We got the skateboard, stuff like that, but you can make your own decisions on if that's necessary in your life. So a lot of these things that we're going to talk about today, we've already gone over in other videos, and we're going to go ahead and make sure we link to them, but we wanted to make sure that there's one video with all of our expenses from the whole 2 years.
We may as well start with last week's video subject, our windlass. And the first part of that, of course, is the windlass itself. Our previous windlass was 15 years old, probably never serviced, and we think the chain was a slightly too big of a link for the Gypsy, which caused it to start to wear down at the same time as the motor itself started to really drag. A lot of components were showing signs of wear and a lot of friction. So we had to replace the whole thing. Obviously a necessity, can't be without a good working windlass for safe and fast anchoring. Second part of that whole system is, of course, the chain. It's Italian Aquafor chain, G4, and it's been strength rated to be better than the ACO American chain. The third thing we did earlier on, because we thought it might have something to do with why our Gypsy was going bad so quickly, we put a nice anchor swivel on to try to keep our chain straight as it's coming into the Gypsy. That took place in Grenada. Another big one, the water maker. And if you watched any of our prepping videos where we're getting the boat ready, the water maker was pretty out of commission. Somebody had not taken much care of it. It hadn't been used in forever, and it was plumbed in a very ridiculous way. So we put a lot of time into just getting it working to start with. If you've been paying attention, it's a continuous saga to keep it working right, which, after talking to other cruisers, it's not uncommon. Water makers can be very finicky, Spectras can be very finicky, but they don't use much energy and they do a good job when they're working well. So we did a lot to this water maker through the 2 years that we've been out here. And that includes bumping this thing up to a 2-pump system instead of 1, which for this model basically almost doubles its output. When it's working properly, it's 15 gallons per hour. We put all new filters, all new pre-filters for the freshwater flush, all new electrical. We've got separate switches for each pump up here, and a new switch at the panel, and very high gauge wiring running over to power it so it doesn't lose voltage. This Clark pump has cost the most of any part of this. While we were in the USVI, that had to be partially rebuilt. We sent it to Fort Lauderdale to have that done. Then in Grenada, it started giving us problems slowly again, and there was no place to send it and nobody really to have work on it without costing an arm and a leg. So I took a few leaps of faith by researching these pumps and decided it was the internal valves, and replaced those. I replaced a few other small parts that are easy to replace just in case, and it totally worked. So it's been running very well since then. We've got one pump that's given us a little bit of a problem right now. It's not putting out the same amount of volume as the other. So we've been running it as a 1 pump recently until we have a chance to sit still and I'll take it apart. Water maker, continual cost, and I think if you have a water maker, that's probably going to be the case. For us, I don't think we would live on the boat in this way without one. As much of a pain in the ass as it can be, I just feel like it's worth it because we're so autonomous. We don't have to figure out where our water's coming from, and we don't have to worry about trying to be too frugal with our water either. We can use it pretty much as we like, and to us that's worth the cost and the hassle. Alright, another big one that maybe people don't think about a lot if you haven't gone cruising yet is just spares. We left the US with quite a few filters, belts, impellers, all that kind of stuff. And that's what all of these boxes are. For both the generator and the motor, oil filters, fuel filters, both kinds of fuel filters, lots of crazy little random spare parts, hoses, belts, fittings. If you're doing your maintenance, those things run out and they are expensive. When we finally got to St. Martin and could get things shipped in at a reasonable cost, it was right about the time we were out of most of these things. Well, it's Christmas again on Cecilia. Yeah, look at all this stuff we got. It's Christmas for Cecilia.
It's not really Christmas.
She got a bunch of presents for herself. I decided it was time to just stock up. We're not going to be in the States proper for a while. Although this got a little expensive because all these filters were kind of heavy. But for the amount that we saved compared to buying them anywhere on the island or any place we've seen, it was substantially worth it. Worth the shipping cost. Shipping all of this cost about $100, and some of these filters cost $20-30 a piece, and then at the cheapest place I've found around here, a $30 filter would be about $50. Got some spares, impellers, backup belt for the generator, and pretty much everything else that we didn't have already, several of. Yanmar oil filters, fuel filters, air filter. I think we're in good shape now. Between all of the spares and all of the maintenance items for the generator and the motor, it costs about this much. Lauren is going to do this next segment because my therapist told me I'm not ready to go back in there.
The Macerator. which we replaced the whole thing. You can watch that on the Great Poop Explosion video, although I would not suggest you to watch that. So yeah, if you watched that episode, you saw us replace the macerator and the mess that caused. As soon as our aft one started to even make the slightest noise, we replaced it. And that cost about this much money.
And all the therapy sessions.
Yeah, and that's uncountable.
It's still ongoing.
Yeah. So we've also refurbished the stove. This wasn't necessarily even on our to-do list. It had been working and it worked okay. It didn't work great, but when we were in St. Martin, we were able to find all of the pieces that we needed to basically make this almost brand new. So we replaced the spark distributor, the burner distributors, and the burner caps. And Rivers got to get his hands dirty and help out, so that was pretty cool.
All of these burner caps are starting to kind of corrode underneath, so every once in a while we have to take them apart and knock all the rust off of them. And none of our igniters work, so we do everything with a manual lighter. These the burners and the caps, the igniters, the battery container, which that's underneath the stove, and that thing's kind of rusty and old looking. All those parts are at Budget Marine. So I'm going to refurbish it. I'm going to get it looking good and have a nice clean, shiny new stove. I'm going to show the people what it looks like behind a boat stove that's been installed for 15 years.
You don't want to see it.
You know they do. I don't think all the degreaser we have on the boat's going to take care of that. I'll get the first layer off. I don't know how this has turned into a cleaning project, but it kind of has. Look at these. The old ones. They called it a Spark Box. Yeah, our previous one was just real questionable. Everything was extremely corroded. Brand new one of these. A couple new connectors on the wires back here, and hopefully when I put it all together it'll work. Can you finish screwing that in? Nice.
It's pretty tight. I have to screw them.
Yeah, so you can screw that one in the rest of the way.
This way?
Yeah. Already tight again. I'm going to show you guys my success story. Woohoo!
So our last thing to do for this to be totally done is go to a welding shop, and hopefully we can find one of those when we are sitting in Puerto Rico in the marina, and we'll just kind of replace this and make it so that it is one nice grate with no weird spots, no wonky, no spots where like the pan will just fall over for no reason. Primary strainer bowl cracked while we were in Grenada, and we found it and we didn't have a replacement, so all we did was epoxy it together and try not to break it any further, which is a very stressful thing, and I do not recommend, because you don't have a replacement and then your boat doesn't work. And there was no place to find them in Grenada, between Grenada and St. Martin, not even a replacement of a different kind that would fit. So when we got to St. Martin, they did have them, and we bought them all.
Well, we bought one.
We bought one, and now it's fixed.
This is our Garmin InReach, and this is probably something that we should have gotten before we left the dock in the U.S. By the time we left the Bahamas to go to the USVI, we went 5 days on open ocean with no way to communicate other than our EPIRBs. And so when we got to the USVI, we decided one of these was something we really wanted to have in our kit for longer passages. With this, we can always get a hold of somebody, even out in the middle of the ocean. We can send texts, we can send emails, we can receive texts and emails. We can our location is always tracked. A nice benefit of this, we can also keep tracks of our progress from one destination to another. Something that we give to our patrons is our tracking of all of Cecilia's movements. And we can also get weather reports from this, and they're pretty good. They're simple. You can get them for this location you're at, or any location in your path, or anywhere at all. And they're pretty cheap. We've been really, really happy with this thing. The service fees are super low. Even with all the messages we send and all the tracks we do, it's under 15 bucks a month, and the unit itself costs this much.
And then, of course, there is our generator. Still an ongoing problem. We started with that in Grenada, and this is how much we've spent on it so far. We're hoping that that will stop being an issue soon.
So these are obviously our fuel lines leading to the injectors and away from the injectors. And we have brand new injectors to put in. They were pretty cheap. They were, relatively speaking, they were about 140 bucks. And so I thought starting fresh with those, since the others are pretty rough, would probably be the thing to do. And then I'll just put it all back together the way I took it apart. Then we're going to try this thing again and see what it does. Trying to keep my expectations nice and low, because so far this generator has been nothing but a pain in my ass.
So, our next project that some would deem unnecessary, and I could be swayed either way, but Eric has been obsessed with putting in less harsh lights than the ones that we have that are on the ceiling. And all of the new boats have nice dimmable LED lights on the side that are just nice, a soft, a homier feel and a nicer feel, and not as harsh of a feel. So when we got Amazon again in St. Martin, Eric installed brand new LED dimmable lights.
I'm about to light up this place. This is because I just don't like big bright ceiling lights such as these. So on both sides over here we have this long rail underneath the windows, and so I've got LED strip lights to go on both sides. They're also dimmable, so I bought two very nice switches with dimmers. And so those two switches are going to go right here, right next to our courtesy light switch. So for our just general evening light, we'll be able to just turn them on and have a nice glow all the way around the edges. All right, are you ready for this? This is the final product, and
they work.
and they're awesome.
I wouldn't say awesome yet.
I think.
The dimmableness is weird.
Well, when our voltage gets too low on the batteries, if you got them on low dim, they vibrate a little bit.
And I do enjoy that they're so easy to turn on.
Door latch mechanisms, not something we figured we'd have to mess with. The door latch mechanisms in all of these doors are a European brand. It's a very high level brand. However, after 15 years of being on the boat, these handles had lost their spring completely. And these mechanisms are not something that's real easy to find in like a chandlery. But again, once we had Amazon, I was able to order the inside mechanism and keep all of this. That said, these were $90 a piece.
And then we have our dinghy. This was an expense that hurt because we were not expecting to have to buy a dinghy so soon after buying our last dinghy. So before we even bought the boat, we knew that this boat didn't have a dinghy. And so we bought Nacho, our last dinghy, thinking that it would do well enough to at least get us a couple years out of it. As you've seen in our past videos, that did not happen. And basically by the time we got this one, we were constantly pumping up the dinghy. So this we got in Grenada. There are also some things on the dinghy that we have replaced or just we felt like we needed. Stern light. I would suggest everybody have a stern light on their dinghy, but it's definitely a safety factor. So that is our fourth stern light. Some didn't work as well, some died, and I think one we just lost. So this one I would recommend. The Navy Safe is the brand for that, and that's one that we found works the best. We've also gone through 2 bags. We found one on Amazon that disintegrated really fast. And where'd you find this? This was St. Martin.
That was at Island Waterworld
Island
in St.
Waterworld
Martin.
in St. Martin. We also have an oil filter, or a gas filter, excuse me.
I just replaced the filter itself. Just the top of it just gets gnarly looking, but it works fine. And cabin fans. Again, that's sort of a preference thing, but this is something we use every single day, almost all day long if we're here. Before we left, we had added 2 of these in our master cabin in place of the 1 stock fans that was up there already. Once we realized how much we liked it, we decided to replace the other fans, 2 in this cabin, as well as the one in River's cabin. And those are pretty expensive as well, but we use them so much and they do a really good job, and they're really easy to clean, very reliable, and very quiet. Alright, well that wraps up all the things that were major boat expenses during the course of the time we've been out here away from the US when we first left. And we don't know the total yet either until right now. Total cost for all of that stuff was okay, so that's a lot of money, but you also have to put it in perspective of the cost of life anywhere you are and whatever lifestyle you might have. Those are big expenses, but obviously one of the most important things to us is keeping our boat operating properly and comfortably, and we wanted to have good resale somewhere down the line. The same things that you might have regarding your home, your car, etc.
Any lifestyle you choose is going to have these kind of expenses. They're just slightly different expenses.
Yeah, they're not ones that live in a land life you're used to dealing with. That's not to say years 3 and 4 will be necessarily cheaper. Those are other maintenance items yet to come.
On our list for upcoming expenses, we need and new bimini and dodger, new canvas. We also need to replace all our cushion. Basically anything fabric related on this boat we need to redo. We're hoping to save a little bit of money and do it ourselves, maybe.
We also have a life raft that is in need of recertification before we make any more really long voyages. Somewhere in the course of the next year, we're going to need a bottom job. We've also got a couple of through hauls. The handles are getting a little bad, so that'll be part of that haul out as well.
We're also going to look into maybe possibly getting a wind generator. We need at least one new battery.
We have one Firefly battery which seems to have gone bad. It's under warranty, so that one's going to get replaced. We're considering adding another. This also didn't include any personal stuff.
Clothes, shoes, household items, all of our camera equipment, any recreational stuff. Let us know if you want us to do a video on that stuff. But this was just the general boat, specifically boat maintenance update.
Yeah. We hope this is kind of helpful for anybody that's planning to do this or curious about the costs. All these components that are on this boat, they're almost identical to just about any kind of make and model boat that you're going to find. They use a lot of the same brands and things, the same types of pumps. The sizes might differ a little. They all have very similar equipment on them. So no matter what kind of boat you buy, those components are going to give out at a similar rate. So I do think it's a pretty accurate look at the kinds of things that you might have to replace consistently through the life of your ownership of the boat.
If you guys want to know more about some of the specific things that we did, like the windlass, go ahead and click. And then if you wanted to know more about our generator saga, that one right there.
Is it sundown time yet? That number makes me
SailAway the refrigerator. Don't forget your toilet paper.